I'm Steve Hines. I'm a traditional naturopath. I'm one of the principals in Hope Wellness Center in Mexico. Today is December 27th of 2020. Quite a tumultuous time to be alive. We've got the coronavirus going on. We've got the presidential election in flux. And so I decided to take this time to do some videos, get caught up on some important things. First of all, I want to give you the standard disclaimer. No portion of this video series should be deemed to be giving medical advice or to treat or mitigate symptoms. With that being said, I have a lot of physicians who are trying to make the move from being conventional to an integrative approach, which means instead of using drugs to treat symptoms, they're looking to understand the underlying cause of why people have the symptoms. And one of the things that's so common and so poorly understood in the world of medicine is that of hypertension. So many people have high blood pressure these days. It's just epidemic. We have people come into our clinic in Mexico that are on 2 or 3 different blood pressure medicines. I've seen people on 4 or 5, and they feel terrible. They're cognitively impaired. Their energy level's low. They feel bad. They have headaches. They don't sleep. So hypertension is a big thing, and rather than throwing ACE inhibitors at people and calcium channel blockers and diuretics, we try to understand why do people come down with hypertension. So one of the things I want to say is we live in a modern agriculture world that is grow things rapidly, grow them to make it easy to combine harvest, keep the weeds down. We're using all kinds of glyphosates, 2,4-D, Roundup, antifungals, root knot nematode problems. There's all kinds of agricultural pesticides, herbicides, solvents that are used. And these things have a profoundly negative effect on our food supply. As a result of all those types of agricultural chemicals, we have basically sterilized our soil. And so just like in a human being, we have a friendly flora that has a lot to do with inflammation, has a lot to do with immunity. The soil is sterile. Therefore, the friendly microbes that normally assist in liberating nutrients, particularly potassium, magnesium, phosphorus, calcium, etc., from the soil substrates, to make them where they can be easily taken up by capillary roots into the plant, are just not happening at the rate that they should. So a tomato looks like a tomato, a tangerine looks like a tangerine, but there are very, very low in minerals. And so here we're talking about potassium, and as the first thing, we are very, very low in potassium in our diet. We're very high in sodium because it's usually added to make food taste better. So chronically low potassium levels are one of the things that we look at with people who have hypertension. And I've heard it said years ago that we don't have a sodium problem so much as we've got that much sodium, but we have a lack of potassium. And in human biochemistry, a lack of potassium lends to an elevated sodium because they're somewhat competitors with the aldosterone renin-angiotensin system. So simply adding potassium into the diet, which is almost going to have to be done supplementally across the standard of any health food store or pharmacy, you can find potassium pills over the counter. Usually 99 milligrams if it's non-prescription. We do use a lot of the pharmaceutical grade in clinic in Mexico, which is potassium chloride, which is very, very well absorbed, but a little dangerous if people don't know what they're doing. They take too much too quick. So adding potassium into the diet is very important. We generally have people taking 400 to 500 milligrams of potassium sometimes twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day. And my conventional friends are very concerned. They think, well, that's too much potassium. And they're used to seeing someone in an emergency room, comes in with high potassium levels, and the first thing they do is diurese them, meaning they give them a diuretic to waste that potassium and get it back down to a normal level. I understand that the concern, because if you get too high of potassium levels, you can definitely cause a heart attack. But the real problem is not high potassium. The problem is that the potassium is not going into the cell. If you're magnesium deficient, you're going to have a hard time getting potassium into the cell. It's just basic physiology. So what really smart ER docs do is, instead of diuresing the potassium, they give people a shot of insulin. So the insulin helps to facilitate the movement of potassium ions from the extracellular fluid into the cell, where they can help to polarize the cell and make it functional. The other thing that is very, very common, and that is magnesium depletion. We just don't have much magnesium in the diet these days. Unless you eat a lot of blueberries, which are very high in magnesium, which I do. I eat probably a cup or 2 of blueberries every day for numerous reasons. But if you don't have magnesium, you don't move potassium effectively. So we use a lot of different types of magnesium. We use magnesium chloride, we use magnesium citrate, we use magnesium malate, we use magnesium magnesium L-threonate, which is very good to get magnesium into the brain. But a lot of people have muscle cramps these days, and they're laying in bed, they flex their foot, and all of a sudden they have a spasm. That is usually because of magnesium depletion and ultimately potassium depletion, because if you're out of magnesium, you're not going to move the potassium effectively. We typically use anywhere from 1,500 to even 2,000 milligrams of magnesium a day. And our body is designed to inhibit a high absorption of magnesium, because frankly, if it weren't for that, the gut inhibiting absorption of magnesium freely, we would, if we ate a pint of blueberries, we'd fall down and couldn't stand up. It would be too relaxed, because you have to have magnesium to relax muscles. So if you did take, let's say, a pint of blueberries and you ate them, there's so much magnesium there, we'd fall down. So the body absorbs maybe 5 to 10% of magnesium at best. So once you get depleted in magnesium, you got a real problem, because you're rate limited in absorbing it. I mean, if you only absorb 5%, then you're wasting the rest, and your body is designed to not allow the magnesium levels to go very high. So we're never supposed to be low in magnesium to begin with, because magnesium and potassium are very abundant in the Earth's crust. Conversely, sodium is very low in the Earth's crust. But because we eat so much at restaurants, we use a lot of canned foods and pouches and bags, and everything's got salt in it to make it taste better, and sometimes as a preservative. But the system is upside down. If you took an organically raised vegetable yield from your garden 100 years ago, or you got some fruits and vegetables, if you were to assay the magnesium and potassium and sodium content, you would find probably 1 sodium ion, 5 magnesiums, and 4 or 5 potassiums. Conversely, now with all our modern agricultural techniques, you'll be lucky to find a magnesium or potassium, but you're going to find 5 times as much salt in a can of beans these days than you would 100 years ago. So once we have slowly depleted magnesium and potassium, it's difficult to get it back in place. Now, the potassium, not such a big deal, but the magnesium is a really big deal. So what we have to do is take small amounts of magnesium throughout the day, or we have to use what we call smart pills. So magnesium citrate, magnesium orotate, magnesium threonate, these are what we call chelates. So since the body resists absorption of magnesium, we have to connect it to something that the body does not resist. And that would be something like a negatively charged amino acid. So you connect the negatively charged amino acid to the positively charged magnesium, and it's translocated across the gut barrier into the bloodstream, and it's carried as a amino acid. So when it gets to the cell takes it in, drops off the magnesium ion into the cell, all is well. But there's a lot of different pathways and a lot of different types of cells. We have our muscle cells, we have red blood cells, we have white blood cells, we have bone cells, and they don't all absorb the same way. So we rotate. We'll use some natural calm, and if you're going to use natural calm, which is everywhere in health food stores these days, even Walmart has it, we would take maybe 1/4 teaspoon and pour it into a cup of hot water. You want to make it fizz. It's like Alka-Seltzer. You want to ionize it. And then a lot of people that know that little trick, it's the difference in really well absorbing or not. Put it in hot water, make it fizz, drink it quickly. And usually within 5 to 10 minutes, you're just going, well, I need to go to bed, because that tells you you got the magnesium into the tissues, the muscles are beginning to relax, the smooth muscles around the blood vessels are relaxing, blood pressure goes down, and you're going to go to sleep. So that is the first of this segment. We will have at least 4 or 5 more. I hope that was of some benefit to you. See you soon.